This meeting is being recorded.
So we got Fallon. She is our social media person. She does everything really social media wise. We have Zoe, the newest team member. She is from OU. She reached out to us a little bit ago. Now she's on the team, and we have Brittany. She is the other co-leader of this Bridging the Gap team. She does
what's up?
She does everything. So, and I'm Kevin. So I almost forgot. I almost forgot to say my name. So I'm Kevin. So the first question I wanted to ask y'all. Obviously, with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there's been a lot of outcry of people that's protested this. So I wanted to ask y'all, how has the overturning of the Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court impacted all of you? Anybody can go first.
Okay, so I'll go first. And first, I'll say this is I'm so glad that you guys get an opportunity to see Zoe and who Fallon is. They are a very vital part of our team and the things that we do. So it's good to have them in front of the camera. So to answer your question, Kevin, as a woman, the overturning of the Roe versus Wade law has really impacted me because I'm a woman's woman. No matter what age you are, no matter what your ethnicity is, no matter what your social status is, I am a woman's woman. So to hear that they took their time to overturn a law that has been in place for a little bit over 50 years, when they have so many other important laws to implement, period, I'm outraged. I am in full support and solidarity with all women who are fighting for the right of their bodies. Because who are men to tell us what we can and can't do when the women have been the birthing place of America since the beginning of all time?
Mm-hmm.
Are you done, Brittany?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go next. I mean, I'm affected by the Roe v. Wade situation as a woman, but also as an Indigenous woman, because people of color have been overlooked for years, and Native Americans have been overlooked in the healthcare community and abortion services. But, personally, when this decision came out, months ago when it got leaked, and we kind of saw it coming because of that opinion, I kind of lost my faith in the apolitical Supreme Court. They're supposed to be unbiased towards everything, but it clearly shows that they're biased in their political ideation. And it's also with the the for the people government, or that's what they try to say, it's for the people, but is it for the people if you're disregarding women?
Right.
It's hard for me to regain that faith now, because they're taking Roe v. Wade and it's escalating. It's dominoing to other Supreme Court landmark cases like Obergefell versus Hodges, which is the same-sex marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, they're already trying to say, let's look at that one. And, they're ruling on some more today about the Native American stuff. And there's an immigration one that they're ruling on. So it's really hard for me as a woman to regain that faith in our government.
It's a good point, Fallon. Zoe, don't hide. Come to the front. We want to hear from you.
I mean, I kind of just became an adult, so it's like that case hasn't really affected me yet. But yeah, it's just really sad to see that there's no exception for rape and incest, especially. And I know that there's going to be so many kids that are going to grow up in bad situations and abusive and hungry. So it's really sad to see all that happening too. And
as a man, it's really just been around women. I know obviously I'm the only guy and the Bridging the Gap team, but just growing up around women and seeing how Jocelyn and her friends don't like no longer have that opportunity to choose what they want to do. I think that's what's scary, and that how the people that we vote in have so much control, how much they actually have control that people don't really want to realize. Like we're just small little puppets in the overall game of what we're doing. So I think for me, that's what scares is just like the people that we elect, you know, year in and year out. I think that's what's scary. So because the people we elect do this, you know what I mean? So
and and that's a great point. However, I feel like, just to piggyback off of you referring to us as the general population as puppets, that shouldn't even be a thing, because when you say that, that put me in the idea of the game of Monopoly. But in the game of Monopoly, I really want people to realize all you have to do is stand up. Yeah. And the people that control the game, you'll break up their little board of pieces. Because we are not puppets, we are people. Yes. And we are people that have voices, we have rights. There are laws that are put in place to make sure that we have rights. So for you to go back and redo or undo what has already been fought for, we're fighting backwards at this point. I think that as a people, we need to realize that it's over 1 billion people in this world. There are only a couple of hundred people that sit on these boards. Why are we afraid of them? Do you have any idea of what 1 billion people could do to a couple of hundred people? We could demolish them, really and truly. And that's why they rule the way they rule. They rule out of fear. They rule out of fear of the people, but they put fear in the people to make sure that they don't become overruled.
So, Brittany, I'm happy you kind of touched on this. So I wanted to ask you, how does this affect the LGBTQ and trans communities? Because, you know, I feel like they get left out of the fold on a bunch of the women's rights talk. So how does this affect that particular group?
I think, just speaking from experience and being a part of the LGBT A through Z, that's what I call it. It's so many letters that I don't want to get that on anybody. But I think that with them just starting to work on the Roe versus Wade, I think that like Fallon said, it's going to trickle into other things and bills and laws that have been passed to be able to give other people rights, to be all inclusive. Because we not only have to think about the LGBT A through Z community, but we also have to think about the Brown versus Board of Education. What does that look like? You know, whenever you get so comfortable that you can undo a law that was implemented over 50 years ago, what does that look like for us? You know, are we next? Because we just got that right to be able to love who we love and be able to get married to the people that we want to get married to. Right. Why is that anybody's business? Because the thing is, we still have to all contribute to Uncle Sam. So you getting a cut of our money, but you don't want our voices and our opinions. You don't want us to give us our rights. Well, give us our funding back that causes the world to go round. You know, you have to also think about the people like Ruth that have fought for this. Like, why did they wait for her to die to go back and hurry up, first and foremost, to hurry up and fill her seat after she had been so heavily influential in getting laws passed for people's rights? That's a coward move to me. You know, I think about just on the episode that we've previously done on women's rights, it was certain things that women were not able to do up until like 42 years ago. Yeah. You couldn't even, as a woman, just doing research, you couldn't even, and this is coming from the Post Bulletin, that's the source, but women in 1776 couldn't own property. They couldn't sign contracts. They couldn't pursue people legally. and the wages that they earned on their jobs, their earnings went to their husbands, as if in modern day women don't control the pocketbook in the household.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't budget the books in their household. So I think that for them to have done this, overturn this law, I think that as a people, we have to stand up and still fight for them to reverse what they have just done, so that it won't trickle and affect other laws that give other people rights.
Found y'all have anything else to elaborate on? So, no. Brittany, you killed the room, man.
Give it back.
Fallon, so this is my next question. So many people leave out Native Americans in the conversation with abortion. Now, since Roe v. Wade was overturned, now people are asking about the abortion clinic. Should abortion clinics be on tribal lands? What do you think about that?
It's a hard question because it sounds good on the surface. That tribes are supposed to have tribal sovereignty, especially in Oklahoma. And it's like a good idea. But, doing research into it recently, I got to thinking that putting an abortion clinic on tribal lands in Oklahoma especially would be detrimental to those tribes because they've already been prosecuted for so many years on various things. And now you're putting something that Oklahoma's trying to make completely illegal, and you're trying to put that on their lands. And regardless of that, I mean, you're looking for legal problems, financial problems, political problems, which we would deal with our, right now, our governor. And it would just, the funding that Native American tribal lands lack funding, especially in their healthcare systems. And that's another point I wanted to bring up was with the Roe v. Wade decision, it also brought upon the Hyde Amendment, which was founded in 1976. And it basically limited the federal funding for abortion and reproductive care. And during that Hyde Agreement, it was only concerning white women. It really wasn't talking about anyone, people of color. So it left out that whole group of people, and it also limited the Indian Health Services. So they couldn't, because tribal lands get their money from the federal government. So they couldn't provide any abortion care unless it was under certain circumstances like rape or incest. So putting a abortion clinic on tribal land is just, it's not the solution for this problem. Like, we need to think bigger than just putting abortion clinics on sovereign land. We got to fight back in other ways because it would just put the Native American community that's already suppressed even more.
Yeah.
I agree. Good points, Fallon.
So Zoe, this is my question to you. So the U.S. has the highest mortality rates amongst any other country. So what are some ways that you believe that we should take to get that number down?
Yeah, so I was looking at some statistics, and according to the CDC, in 2020, there was 861 mothers that died during pregnancy or birth, or 42 days after is the maternal mortality definition. And that's even risen 200 people from the previous years, from 2018. And so it just keeps rising. And then the Commonwealth Fund says that that we are the highest in the mortality rate of mothers in developed countries, and that most of them were actually preventable, but we have a shortage of maternal care, especially like midwives, and a lot of that is detrimental for after birth as well. And we also need to have less use of unnecessary and potentially harmful interventions like C-sections and instrument-assisted births and epidurals in low-risk pregnancies. because that would help the mortality rates drop a lot.
So go ahead, Brittany.
And just to piggyback off of what Zoe was saying with the mortality rate, those numbers aren't going to drop. Those numbers are actually, in fact, going to increase really quickly, because even now you have clinics like Planned Parenthood where people go and get safe abortions that within the next, like now, about 26 days, they've already started counseling, standing appointments so that women could safely abort children. I think that another thing that is not being mentioning is the reasons why women are getting abortions other than rape and incest. You have so many people, like, say for instance, what if a woman has the AIDS virus and she knows just by how complicated her life is, she don't necessarily want to pass that on to her child. Or even women with sickle cell, you know, it's a long battle for them. Or even with lupus, they carry the lupus trait. You know, those healthcare factors are going into play when women are deciding, hey, you know, I just don't want my child to suffer throughout their entire life. Because as a mother, what happens if, God forbid, if I lose my life? Who's going to take care of the health care of my and well-being of my child? What if a woman knows that emotionally and mentally that they're not going to be able to take care of a child that's born with ADHD or that's born with mental retardation? It take a special care. It take a support team. Sometimes people don't have the support system in order to be the best parent that they can be, and they know that. Sometimes being like getting an abortion is not just about I just don't want a kid. Sometimes it's I cannot mentally prepare myself to bring a life into this world because I had sex one night. You know what I mean? Or sometimes the condom might break. These are things that are real situations. What about the 15-year-old that knows that I won't be able to financially afford a child right now? So you telling me that you forcing somebody to bring a life into this world, and you still dealing with the struggles of a major corporation that distribute baby formula. It's shortages all over the stores right now, but you mean to tell me that you want to produce more lives into this world and you ignore the lives that already exist? What about the standing CPS cases where these kids are abused and neglected, but you don't even have proper placement to put them, so they end up going back into the bad environment that they already been flagged on to be taken out of? I think that personally, these people that have made these permanent decisions on other people's behalf need to be financially responsible for their decisions to overturn a law that has been put in place for over 50 years. I think that they should also be held accountable for adopting at least 3 children to be a part of the solution, because at this point you're contributing to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what about the kids that are 17 years old and they have been in the system their whole lives, so that when they get 18, if they don't have proper guidance, then you see rates of incarceration going up. You know, you're not thinking about the ending products. What about the children that are going out and committing mass murders at the age of 18? They're not thinking about this. It's just that they're pro-birth, but they're not pro-life, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were pro-life, then you would be putting in security practices and laws instead of undoing what has already been done to protect women and give women's rights. But you can't even ensure that these kids are going to make it through recess at their schools.
Mm-hmm. So,
Brittany, I'm so glad you started talking about that, because the point I really wanted to make in this was the cycle that this is going to bring. Because, you know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and one of the bigger problems that we have in society today is the private prison system. You know, and that the private prison system is funded by bodies. So when you force women to have unwanted children and, they're put into the CPS system for adoption or put into foster homes, they're growing up sometimes on the street. So then they're picking them up for petty crimes during their juvenile stages, put in juvie. They're growing up in that same criminal lifestyle because they've never had any guidance from parents or guidance from a proper foster care system. And, and they grow up and they're adults, they commit a crime and they're put in prisons. And that's the cycle like that I feel like is going to happen. And that is what some politicians are wanting to happen because that's how they fund their private prisons and how they get their money. And that's only from getting more bodies in this world, and it's so, I hate to think of it that way, but it's hard not to when, one side is pushing the private prison system so hard. And the only way you fund private prisons is by getting more people in them.
Right.
Absolutely. And that also creates a problem financially for taxpayers because the longer you're in prison, those are where the tax dollars are going. Why are we not setting up a system that doesn't create a system of failure for individuals? It seems like the more that we fight to progress past failure, they bring us back because failure brings them funding.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge problem.
So real quick, we have about 2 minutes left. What are y'all's hope for the future?
And let's start with Zoe.
Zoe, yeah, you go first. Hope for the future. We got about 1:40 left.
Okay. I think it's going to be very hard to care for all these children that are going to be like abused and neglected and in these horrible situations and going into the foster care system and being bounced around from person to person who probably abuses them as well. I don't know. I just hope that there's going to be a better situation for them. Maybe, hopefully in the future, they can do something about that. I don't exactly know what that would be, but just better care for these children because it's just a terrible situation to end up in so early in life.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Fallon?
I mean, I know it's a far reach, but expanding the court, getting the Supreme Court expanded is crucial for these cases that are going to be looked at. I know that's far-fetched, so standing together as women, standing together as a community is probably the biggest thing right now. And then recognizing people of color and indigenous people and realizing that tribal sovereignty is what we need, but understanding the problems that are within people of color societies.
Okay, and my spiel is, let's just overturn the Supreme Court because what justice have they really bought? Because a part of the allegiance to the flag is liberty and justice for all, but who is for all but when it's only standing for some?
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.